Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome back to my Premier League predictions, where today we'll be talking about the clash between Arsenal and Manchester United. Can Liverpool survive without Virgil van Dijk? And kudos to West Ham for getting kudus. Of course, welcome everyone back to my Premier League predictions, where today we'll be talking about Premier League Matchweek 4. As you guys can hear, I'm less sick than last week. I finally have my voice back and I sound slightly less than Sean Dyche.
I also smoke exhaust pipes.
So we'll take that, but of course, I doubt you guys came to this video just to hear me talk about my voice. So of course, jumping into our first game of Premier League Match Week 4, we have Luton versus West Ham. And may I just say, as someone who has made countless African videos on this channel, I am tremendously excited to see Mohamed Kudus in the Premier League. And I'll say this right here, right now, a bit of free information. Mohamed Kudus is absolutely going to tear things apart for the Hammers. In fact, I think he will start off with a 4-0 win for West Ham United versus Luton. As I said on countless occasions, I think he's a phenomenal footballer, and I just think the ceiling of a player like him is so tremendously high. Looking at the midfield signings for West Ham United, they've really done well to spend that Declan Rice money. I mean, to get the likes of Alvarez, Ward-Prowse, who's been absolutely phenomenal, and Kudus in that midfield. I mean, as a Manchester United fan, I can only be jealous. I mean, if we had the Declan Rice money, we would have spent half of it on Cucurella and the other half on bleach for our Brazilian players' hair.
He's out of line, but he's right.
At the end of the day, so tremendously proud of West Ham United, and versus a Luton team who, yes, was okay in the Carabao Cup, but has not shown a single bit of that in the Premier League so far, I have to back West Ham United with a tremendous 4-0 win. Sheffield United versus Everton is next. Now, of course, neither of these two teams with a single point so far this season. Although saying that, I didn't think Sheffield United were necessarily bad versus Manchester City. And looking at Everton, they've just got a brand new striker in terms of Beto, which, let me just say, sounds like the perfect Ivan Toney replacement at Brentford.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
But of course, look at Everton, finally with the striker up front. Not the best in the world, 10 goals in 33 Serie A games last season. But saying that, it is Everton. For Everton, I think that is a brilliant striker. And it really does fix a lot of their problems. And in fact, because of that, I'm slightly edging towards Everton. And I do think I'm going to give the Toffees a 1-0 result. Brentford versus Bournemouth is next. Now, of course, looking at Brentford, they are unbeaten in their first 3 games this season. Yes, defensively, they have their shaky moments, but up front with Mbeumo Visa and so many others, they have looked absolutely brilliant, and I would be surprised if they didn't pick up at least a 2-1 win here. Looking at Bournemouth, I think they start off majority of their games very, very strong. I really like the likes of Semenyo, but ultimately at the end of the day, defensively, I still think they're way too shaky. We saw that versus Tottenham Hotspurs, so I have to give the Bees a very powerful sting. Wait, well, I guess I'm giving the Bees the ability to give a very powerful sting, I think. Burnley versus Tottenham Hotspurs is next. Now, of course, although the best player in the entirety of world football is in this game, with the likes of Lyle Foster,
I guess we'll never know.
Unfortunately, I have to give Tottenham Hotspurs the win here. As much as I like Vincent Kompany, I like the kind of project at Burnley at the moment, I just think Tottenham Hotspurs in the Premier League has been far better. I think in terms of scoring goals and keeping goals out, Tottenham Hotspurs really look good under Ange Postecoglou. I know obviously they got knocked out the Carabao Cup by Fulham, but that's just kind of Tottenham, showing you that they're still Tottenham. But at the end of the day, Burnley unfortunately defensively really struggling in the Prem at the moment, really struggling to get on the score sheet at the same time. I do think I have to give Spurs a 2-0 result, and I think it's going to be another James Maddison masterclass. Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest is next. Now, of course, looking at Chelsea, 1 draw, 1 win and 1 loss. A very mixed bag of results so far this season. But let me just add, I don't think Chelsea have played bad in any of their 3 games this season. And because of that, I have to give them a 3-1 win here. Looking at them overall, I think attacking-wise, they've been absolutely brilliant. They are currently supposedly going to sell the likes of Marc Cucurella to Manchester United for like £45 million.
You idiot. You're honestly an idiot. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Which, let me just say, as much crap as we talk about Todd Boehly, if he manages to pull that off, I mean, he deserves a statue outside, to be honest with you. Absolute con man, but at the end of the day, I do think Chelsea look very, very strong. They don't have the availability of Christopher Nkunku yet, but you know what? That's why they made Raheem Sterling into the next Christopher Nkunku. He's been brilliant so far this season. And versus Forest, as I said, it should be a 3-1 win. I do think Forest will score though, obviously Awoni becoming the first ever Forest player to score in 7 consecutive Prem games. They were very very, very good versus Manchester United, but obviously that red card kind of made everything fall apart. And yeah, as I said, at the end of the day, Chelsea seem to be on better form and they'll take the points. Manchester City versus Fulham is next. Now, of course, I am going to give Manchester City a 2-0 win here. I didn't think they were spectacular versus Sheffield United.
Bye, have a beautiful time.
I do think they are missing the presence of Pep Guardiola on the sideline, but they still have an absolutely phenomenal team. Looking at Fulham, although yes, they knocked Spurs out of the Carabao Cup, but as I said, that's just Spurs doing Spurs thing. I don't think they've been absolutely phenomenal in the Premier League. And looking at Man City, once again, it is Man City and they should pick up a 2-0 result. Brighton versus Newcastle United is next. Now, of course, I believe this has every possibility of being a tremendously exciting game and a very high scoring game. Obviously, looking at Brighton, they've started off the ground running on a tremendous pace, looking really, really good in the beginning of the season, scoring a lot of goals. We're looking at Newcastle United. No, 1 win from 3 doesn't sound impressive, but they've had a very tricky fixture start to the season. Obviously, I think they're almost quite unlucky versus Liverpool, obviously, to end up losing in the dying minutes. But I do think they'll get the points here in a 3-2 victory. As I said, a lot of goals will be scored. And the only reason I kind of choose Newcastle over Brighton is because looking at the 5 goals that Brighton have conceded so far this season, 4 of those 5 goals have come past the 58th minute, really showing that towards the dying minutes of the game that they kind of lose momentum, which I mean, Brighton should really attend a class on how to last longer. I've heard those can be quite effective.
Say what now?
Crystal Palace versus Wolves is next. Now, of course, believe it or not, I think this has potential to be a really, really exciting game. Look at Crystal Palace. No, they don't have Wilfred Zaha anymore. But I almost think that Jordan Ayew has almost picked up where Zaha left off. I think he's been brilliant in terms of his goal contributions. I think Crystal Palace has played very, very well so far. They're reportedly about to get the likes of Dean Henderson, who would be a very solid goalkeeper. And looking at Wolves, no, their results haven't looked that great. But I've also been very impressed once or twice by them, especially getting a 5-0 win in the Carabao Cup versus Blackpool. I do think that will give them a bit of confidence, but at the end of the day, I can't split the difference and I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Jumping into our second last game of the video, we have Liverpool versus Aston Villa. Now, of course, before we get any further, once again, if you guys are enjoying these prediction videos, don't forget to subscribe down below if you'd like to see more in the future. It just makes sense. But of course, looking at Liverpool, they obviously don't have Virgil van Dijk picking up a red card in his previous game, which is a massive loss because as we know, when Liverpool don't have Virgil van Dijk, they're a tiny bit like a chocolate kettle. I mean, yeah, it's there, it doesn't look too bad, but it's not as functional, is it?
Okay.
I do think Liverpool has potential to struggle versus Aston Villa, especially after some brilliant performances in their last few games. I think the likes of Moussa Diaby could pose a real threat on the attacking front. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to back Liverpool. I think that comeback versus Newcastle United showed that they still have that fighting spirit, and I'm going to go with a 2-1 win. We still don't know whether Emi Martinez will be available for Aston Villa, and that is a huge game changer in my opinion. Next up, we've got Arsenal versus Manchester United in our final game of Premier League Matchweek 4. Now, of course, after conceding 2 goals in the first 5 minutes versus Nottingham Forest, Manchester United, are we trying to give Eriksen another cardiac arrest? That has to be the most stressful game I've watched in a very, very long time. And trust me, as a Manchester United fan, that's really saying something.
I don't want peace. I want problems, always.
I will say though, versus Arsenal, I am worried about Manchester United because we haven't been convincing in either of our first 3 games. We're looking at Arsenal. I wouldn't say that they've been playing to the level that they did last season, in my opinion at least, but I do definitely think they've looked stronger than Manchester United. Ultimately though, Manchester United, once again, we haven't seen them versus a big team so far this season, and that's kind of where Manchester United show their real strengths. I think this has potential to be a very, very close game, and at the end of the day, I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw here. Is that me as a Manchester United fan just not wanting to predict a loss for us? Maybe slightly slow, but at the end of the day, this is always a fixture that is incredibly close, always has entertaining moments, and I actually can't split the difference because ultimately at the end of the day, I think looking at Arsenal versus Crystal Palace, I wasn't that impressed. Versus Fulham, they obviously lost unnecessary points, and ultimately anyone can win this. I did ask you guys on my community tab, and you guys do seem to think that Arsenal will win this one, but I do think it will be close, and I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my Premier League Match Week 4 predictions. Once again, I hope that you guys did enjoy. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, all of the good stuff down below. Hopefully my voice will be fully back by next week.
Get in there!
But until then, guys, this has been Finn, FYNN. Cheers. Bye.